I was writing notes on the Princess Anne interview, and because I was going to do a video about it, and I had Dan Wootton on in the background, GB News, just for a bit of entertainment. I just love that program. It's so bitchy, and they have such good guests on. And I particularly love it when he has Tom Bower on, because Tom Bower is just perpetually in a bad mood. Always grumpy and always got a lot to say. And so I had that on in the background for entertainment. And then Dan Wootton said that Charles was getting, it was just sort of a throwaway introductory comment where Charles was doing away with ancient rituals and replacing it to create a more woke ceremony. And I thought, it stopped me. And I thought, this might be worth discussing, Dan. So it sort of took me back, because we sort of know that, you know, Dan uses the word woke as in the negative connotation, which is sort of this performative sense of social justice that is very moralising and judgmental on the rest of us mere mortals. And then there is the positive side of woke, where it's just an awareness of issues and a responsive attitude, a flexible, open-hearted, responsive attitude to the major issues of the day, and maybe updating your attitudes to reflect modern society. So there's the positive, and then there's the negative. And I think that actually it lies somewhere in the sensible middle. I think most of us live in the sensible middle, not far right, not far left, just in the middle. So I thought it would be interesting to just have a look about how true that actually might be. And Princess Anne, in her interview, actually gave us an answer to that, because she said that the coronation is not just a ceremony, that it actually lays out really important duties and obligations that the monarch has to us. And you don't think of it that way. You think of it more as an allegiance to the king, as a ceremony to crown him in this high position. But it also lays out their obligations to their people. And that's why it's such a solemn and serious ceremony. It's a huge undertaking of the duty they're going to take up. And Princess Anne makes the point that none of those important pieces can possibly be removed from the coronation, and they're not going to be. So Tom Bower and Dan's main gripe was the Archbishop of Canterbury. I can tell that Tom Bower just has no time for the Archbishop of Canterbury, and I've actually got a quote here which I thought was a bit of a hoot. Tom Bower says that that what a silly man the Archbishop of Canterbury is. He has no sense of reality, and he's always protesting the most ridiculous things. So he has no time for that. And he said that whoever approved in the palace for this Pledge of Allegiance thing must have lost their marbles. And you can just tell Tom Bower doesn't really have a lot of time for Charles either. I mean, he wrote The Rebel Prince and he wrote The Rebel King, and he just doesn't have a lot of time for Charles. He doesn't think he's practical enough and stable enough and serious enough or firm enough. And so that's why it's such a hoot when he's on Dan Wootton's show, because he has an opinion and he delivers it. So the main gripe about the Pledge of Allegiance, which I guess would have come across as a bit woke, okay, I'll concede that, the negative connotation of woke, because people have to pledge allegiance not just to King Charles III, but they have to pledge it to his heirs and successors. And of course, that includes Prince Andrew and Prince Harry. And so, you know, it's just not going to happen. So Tom Bower made the point that 19 members of his family are going to be gathered around the TV to watch the coronation, including I presume, his grown-up children. He said that they would just laugh at it, having to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I don't think that's gone over very well, and I don't think maybe they should have let the Archbishop of Canterbury announce it. it might have been better going through the comms team and really working out how to phrase that one. But it's interesting how the narrative shifts, isn't it? Because they also just threw away the line in this interview about reparations and slavery, and they said that Charles supported it and that Princess Anne didn't. And that's not really true. It's a leap, because all Charles has done is he's provided access to historical records that an independent group can examine to determine what happened between, links of slavery with the monarchy. Now, what was he supposed to do? Say, no, you can't look at them? No, not providing access. We're hiding everything. Can you imagine the uproar if King Charles III did not allow access to those historical records? As uncomfortable as it may seem, he allowed open access. That's the only way to deal with these things. And Anne didn't have a position. She just said that we have to be careful about reparations. She just said we have to be careful about focusing too much on the past, as important as it is, because she made the very good point that slavery is ongoing, that it still happens today, that we have to fight it now in the present day. And I thought that was just an absolutely brilliant point, because she has such an outward way of looking, because she does so much work, in third world countries. And she's saying, well, yes, we need to right the wrongs of the past, but hey, let's put our energy into the current fight. That's what she was saying. And I think that was brilliant. She's never far off the mark, is Anne. There has been adjustments to the coronation, as in the processional route is a lot shorter, but that was made with ideas of security, but also they just didn't want to shut down London to the extent that the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II did. They don't want to shut down the West End for a long period of time. They don't want to shut down things too much because of COVID. Everybody's just trying to get back on their feet, and London's just coming alive again. And to be truthful, the coronation is really going to help. It's going to inject over $1 billion into the UK economy. So I'm sure that is much needed and much looked forward to. But as far as the actual ceremony being, shortened down to about an hour from 4 hours, well, a lot of that is actually to do with this Pledge of Allegiance, because in the old ceremony that Queen Elizabeth II had, the peers, one by one, would come up and pledge their allegiance to the sovereign. That took a lot of time. People had to sit through a very long period of time in her coronation where each peer came up in their beautiful robes and did their Pledge of Allegiance. And it's a lovely moment for them, and I'm sure it was very heartfelt, but it makes very boring television. So a lot of that was cut out when they decided, let's not make it about peers pledging allegiance, let's make it to the people, let's give it to the people. But there wasn't a lot of thought whether the people wanted to be given that one, really. But that was the idea behind it, was to actually cut out that really long peer allegiance thing, throw it over to the people and let them say it if they want. But the way it was spun and explained was lacking. I think they needed to really emphasise that they were taking it away from the peers and giving it to the people, and you don't even have to say it, it's just an idea. And yeah, it could have been rolled out in a lot better way, I think. So it's going to be very exciting. All sorts of things have happened already. There's been security breaches at Buckingham Palace where a guy threw shotgun pellets or cartridges over the fence, and his bag was had a controlled detonation. Now, we don't know whether there was anything in the bag that really required the controlled detonation, because sometimes they just blow up bags that have, a jumper in them, because they're not going to risk people's lives, delving into it. They'll just blow it up to make sure that there was nothing in there. Now, new information may have come out since I've recorded this video, because I'm recording this about 2 hours after it broke about the security breach at Buckingham Palace. But you realise what a huge, huge process the security for this event will be. And talking about security, our little friend Harry, there's rumblings across the pond that he may not attend if his plane details are leaked to the media. And it makes you wonder, who's going to leak it to the media? So that's why he hasn't told them when he's arriving. So I think he's setting it up that when he does tell the palace about his flight details and when he's arriving, because there was a big hoo-ha yesterday that Harry hadn't given anyone in the palace information about when he's actually entering the country and where he'll be staying and the whole bit. And so I think he's holding that back because he's saying, well, if I give you that information and it's leaked, I won't come because my security has been impeded. And so, you know, it makes you wonder, is the leak going to come from the palace or is the leak going to come from somewhere else? Because it would be the perfect way out, wouldn't it? He wouldn't have to come if it's leaked. So let's see if it's leaked. Let's see if he comes. I am of the belief that he may not turn up. I'm not sure that he could handle facing all the fallout from that witness statement. I don't think he'd be able to handle the withering stares coming from the royal family and particularly from William, if William in fact even looks in his direction. And I don't know whether he'd be able to handle sitting about 10 rows back. So I thought that was interesting to just examine whether it really was a woke ceremony or, I mean, you can just tell that Dan and Tom Bower are going to be really going after King Charles on everything post-coronation. They are already setting the scene. They are already winding up their narrative that he's the woke king. You can see they're laying the groundwork. And I'm not sure that that's fair because Charles has never come across to me as a woke individual. He's come across as the more positive side of the word, where he's aware of issues, he's ahead of issues, but he's been very careful since he's become king. He has not delivered a political viewpoint. And I think the slavery reparations thing was a beat up. I hope there's no more security scares though, and I hope it all goes really, really smoothly. Until next time, bye-bye.